Okay. Now, when it comes to discussion, as always, there'll be more ways to interact. So you can raise a hand, and we'll give you the mic. You can post. Oh, by the way, to raise the hand, you can just go to participants list, and you'll see the icon to raise the hand. You can also wave if you switch on the camera. Please do that. I'll try to note that you raise the hand. My colleague Andrea, who is taking notes and helping me managing the session, will also try to record who has asked for the floor. You can do the same thing in the chat as well. So one way is to grab the mic. The other way is to use the chat and post your comments. And the third way will be a little bit of interaction that I'll explain in a few minutes. So, you know, these games with post-it notes. And if you thought that you can't do that online, well, actually, we can do it. We'll play a little bit with that as well. Now, the context of the session is, as announced, to try to see, well, discuss basically cybersecurity. But the idea is not necessarily to map the institutions in Geneva, which we know they're dealing with cybersecurity. As an example, we know that the ITU is leading the WSI Section 9, or many of us will touch upon that as well. We probably know that, I don't know, Geneva Center for Security Policy does some trainings on cybersecurity and so on. But the point is to actually try to see what might not be so obvious, and that is where the interlinkages between the silos of organizations and topics on who is doing what. And to do that, we'll run this session in two pillars. The first one is to discuss the topics that come to our agenda, which are related to cybersecurity policies. And I'll encourage all of you to share any questions or specific topics that you bump on in your everyday life, which are related to cybersecurity, so that we map the topics. And then the second step will be trying to assign, in a way, who does what regarding these topics. So if you have a question about a topic, who should you go to? Should you go to the ITU or WTO or who else in and around Geneva? But before that, I wanted to get the sort of feeling of who we have in the room. And thanks for already editing your names to see the organizations. And I'll ask my colleague Fira to put the poll on. The poll is very simple. I just want to check to what extent cybersecurity is actually your main field of work, or you're in the other field of work, but you have some touch with cybersecurity policy issues, not the technical cybersecurity aspects if something is not working, but actually to what extent you're full in cybersecurity, to what extent you're absolutely out of that, and somewhere in between. So take the poll, please, to have a better feeling of whom we have in the room in a way. Okay, that's why we don't have that many responses, so I'll wait a little bit more. And in the meantime, there were a couple of topics already raised in the previous session, so I'll put them on floor as soon as we start discussing the topics. But you can start doing that in the chat if you wish already, having some reflections on the particular topics that you deal with every day when it comes to, or not every day, but occasionally when it comes to cybersecurity. We currently have 13 votes, and it says it's sort of a mix, which is good. Most of you don't, for most of you, it's not actually the daily focus, cybersecurity. There are a couple of people which has it in their focus. I can probably, knowing some of you, I can probably guess who voted for that one, which is good, because it allows us to see broader than just a community of cybersecurity professionals who maybe knows who's doing what in Geneva. Okay, we can close the polling. So let's say that majority of us are not specialists in the field. And the first question for you, and I'll share the screen with you. So the first question for you is actually, what is let me put it this way. I'll share the screen, and I'll also send the link so that you can use it in your browser if you wish as well. I'll share it in the chat. So here's the link. Let me copy paste it. Okay. Here is the link. If you want to play with the post-it notes, you can do it as well. And basically, what we're looking at currently is this area of what are the issues. And I've brought some examples over there. I hope you can see it. I brought some examples over there on what are the possible issues. So I encourage you to, in this framing of what are the issues, to add any post-it notes. You can just double click and it's quite easy. In the frame and you'll get the post-it note. And just add any topic that comes to your agenda that you would like to know whom to discuss with in Geneva. Whether it's, and I added some of the comments as examples. So for instance, the applicability of international law, the cyberbullying and so on. But there was one question which came from Vladimir, I think in the previous session in the private sector group, which was how are contentious issues like tech trade war between China and the US navigated in Geneva. So you can just add any of the questions or topics, and please do that in the chat as well. You don't have to necessarily use the platform. It's a little bit of playing with new tools. We have to experiment. But add your points in the chat or just raise a hand. So I do want to encourage someone of you. I'm not going to call to those that I know, but rather asking any one of you that are not in the cybersecurity field. If you wish to grab a mic briefly and tell us what are some of the topics, firstly, what is the field of your work? And then what are some of the cybersecurity topics that that you bump on during your daily work? Any volunteers? Anyone wants to raise a hand? You can, in participants list, you can raise a hand. You can post it in the chat, and I think it'll be easy. Yeah, you can unmute yourself. But yeah, Sashi, if I pronounce it correctly, Sashi, you should be able to unmute yourself, I think. So you can just try with to change the mic and get back to us again. There was some sort of a cracking noise in the background. So you can give another try. In the meantime, certainly you can also type in the chat. Let me see what's on the list. So we have data localization laws. We have state behavior in cyberspace. I'll try to group them somehow. It's not going to be easy. Well, Hisashi is putting on the mic. Anyone else who wants to jump in with thoughts? Amir, two most important issues. Amir, feel free to pick the mic if you wish, if it's easier for you. Okay. What else do we have?
Can you hear me?
Yes, it should be okay now. Yep. Amir.
Hello. It's my pleasure to be with you. Thanks, Diplo, for organizing such a timely event. 2 points I would like to mention. One is, as well as we want to have norms and rules on social responsible state behavior, we should also have rules, principles, and norms on behavior of tech companies and non-state actors, and for example, digital platforms. Another issue and key issue here is
we might have lost you now. We've heard the first point. Seems like
issue of digital.
Okay, go on.
Excuse me. My 2 point was we need rules, norms, and principle on social behavior of tech companies and digital platforms, and the other issues is solving the issue of digital identity. Without solving this issue, our collective efforts will reach nowhere, I think. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amir. Noted. Thanks for that. Hisashi, do you want to try again? I don't know if the yeah, it's still quite noisy, but you can add a comment in the chat if you can. Yes. Okay, Andrea, please type it. Actually, it's a bit noisy in the background, so we can't really understand what you're speaking. Anyone else want to jump in, including those that are from the security sector? I see some more comments in the post-it notes. So let me see. State behavior. That's what we have. Behavior of tech actors. That's another question. This one, applicability was actually not mine. Digital identity. Anything else? Anne-Marie, about these points, protection of critical infrastructure from cyber attacks. Thanks for that. Anne-Marie, if you wish to jump in with voice, please go ahead, and thanks for switching on the video. It's highly encouraged. Good to see you.
Thank you, and greetings, everyone. I don't have much more to add to these points, but I do think that both digital identity and behavior of non-state actors is commercial and non-commercial are important online in addition to state, because cyberspace is a multi-stakeholder environment, and we all have ability to influence and make it less safe or safer. So we all have responsibilities in that point. And I will end my comment there. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So again, responsibilities of different actors, and we'll get back in a second to see who is possibly working on that already in Geneva and which doors we should knock. Roach says, improving resources and skills for law enforcement to be able to identify and investigate cybercrime. So we can definitely put it as, I guess, as cybercrime, and then capacities, law enforcement capacities for cybercrime. Anyone else who wants to jump in? Don't be shy. Just raise a hand. Let me see if we have anything else. Andriana, did I miss anything in the chat? You can just jump in if I miss anything.
No, Lado, you are keeping track very well. I'm impressed.
Well, still not that many comments, so I'm trying to catch up. Thanks, Samir, for adding that in written. That's also very useful. Law enforcement capacities for cybercrime. Thanks for that one. I'll remove those that I added as an example, like cyberbullying. Certainly, you can add it if you think we should have that as well. And we have increase in adoption of repressive cyber laws. I'm not sure who posted it. If you wish to comment or elaborate a little bit more of what you thought with increase in adoption of repressive cyber laws, whether that's something we're missing or we have too many of them, or if you wish, you can elaborate. And then we have ensuring minimal existing standards. And Geneva, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, there are many issues, of course, in cybersecurity. The ones which I think we haven't mentioned are how do we react to cyber attacks? Possibility of hacking back. Is it something which is possible, which is appropriate? Sanctions in case of cyber attacks. What kind of sanctions should be imposed, could be imposed? I think that there is somewhere there the state of international law, which is something which is linked very much to sanctions and hackback. But I'm not sure that I can see it. So what are the rules that actually exist? Compulsory rules which are to which sanctions are attached in case of violation.
Thanks. I've added that as one of the points over there, so we have it so clear in the among the recommendations or the questions that we should touch upon. And I think this probably falls best within this sort of the applicability of international law group of questions in a way, right? We have, let me take a look at the chat. We have ensuring minimal existing standards are implemented. So the standards related to HTTPS, IPv6, and so on. And then we have from Anne-Marie, effective oversight for cyber actions, how to do so. while at the same time protecting human rights and ensuring that human rights is respected in cyberspace. Okay, anyone else wants to elaborate more on the questions? I don't know if you, Johan, if you wish to build up on the human rights aspects and how to bridge the two silos in a way, human rights and cybersecurity.
Well, thank you so much. I think, I mean, when you look at human rights, I think at least when we look at the Geneva perspective, it's the good thing with Geneva is that we don't always deal with the hardcore state behavior in cyberspace. It's mainly the GG and the open-end working group, and they are more based in New York. So I think that the bonus of Geneva is that we have many issues that touches upon human rights aspects, which are important. I mean, privacy, how to use data, all of these things, which one can work on in Geneva. And of course, you have the Human Rights Council, which is the pinnacle of these discussions. But I think many of the others in areas in Geneva where you can have a positive discussion about how to work with this. If I look at the latest discussions, I think they have been rather focused on the negative, and I think we can see the positives. If you look back a few years, if you take the Arabic Spring, I mean, many people thought that the digital would help promoting human rights. So there are always two sides of the coin. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Yeah, good point. Thanks. And actually, you give a good move on or leverage to move on to this assigning the topics. We have a bunch of topics. There are more coming in the chat, and thanks for that. Just go on. You can certainly put them directly in the map if you wish, or we'll do that for you later. But the question is, so let's start with some of the groups of the questions. And now probably I need more of the assistance of some of you that are deeper in the field of cybersecurity in Geneva. So we have a bunch of institutions. We have listed just some of those. And in the Geneva Atlas, we'll definitely look into as much as we can of who are the actors. The ITU, then the whole set of UN institutions, UNIDIR, but certainly the GG and the open-ended working group are mainly New York. There are some meetings of the GG in Geneva. That's why we sort of put it there, because there is still some role of Geneva and ways for inputs. The Red Cross, definitely, was in Geneva. World Trade Organization, which is, as we discussed previously, framing discussions as trade, but there are a lot of discussions about cybersecurity in context of e-commerce. Human Rights Council, which is dealing with this intersection between human rights and freedoms and then security on the other hand. World Health Organization, we mentioned in the previous session, probably many of the topics that come as a result of the attacks during COVID and so on might be on their agenda. But a good question, I don't know if we have anyone from WHO today with us in this group. So the WHO should probably be one instance where some of these things could be discussed, but whether it is and whether it will be at some near future, that's also a good question. If anyone wants to share a thought or experience on that, let me know. And then there were some discussions within the Conference on Disarmament, at least raised within the agenda about the international law, but it didn't really follow up. We don't know whether it will. And then on the bottom, we have listed all the various non-UN or non-international organization institutions, organizations, so such as standard making bodies, ISO, and then the others. World Economic Forum, DCAF and GCSP as big entities dealing with the security and then cyber as well. Geneva Internet Platform, certainly. ICT for Peace, I know Daniel is here with us today. Cyber Peace Institute as a new institution in the field, which has done quite much on discussions about protecting the health sector, actually, recently and during the COVID. Geneva Dialogue on Responsible Behavior, which is a process started by the Swiss government with Diplo and other partners in the recent years, exactly for mapping the roles and responsibilities. So what I'll ask you to do, if anyone wants to, and Annele raise a hand, to start trying to map and explain to the extent you know what the institutions on the right do. And certainly if there is any other missing institution, let us know. trying to map who is doing what, and in the meantime, I'll try to move some of the topics to the related place on the right. But Anneli and then Anne-Marie. Anneli.
Yes, thank you very much. Very interesting discussion. It's a more general note, but since we're talking about mapping here today of different digital initiatives, as you know, Estonia was one of the champions of the Secretary General's high-level panel's recommendation for safety and security in cyberspace. And actually, our main contribution to that work was to conduct the mapping study amongst the constituency before or during the roundtable process. And just to draw your attention and make this linkage here, because a lot has been done, and the main findings actually of the study was that what we need is a more comprehensive overview of the existing initiatives, and then more coordination among or between the existing initiatives are also important. And of course, the linkage between the digital trust and SDGs should be further explored. So these were the three main findings of that. And then we are very happy to share that study also with the Geneva Internet platform if it would be of your interest. So it's more general and mapping the policies and different initiatives, but since you mentioned some of them already, that was also mapped in our study. So maybe it would be good to make that linkage as well. Thank you.
Thank you, and certainly please do share the link. You can do it if you have a link within the chat already, or just send us later on. We're trying to also collect who's done what in the meantime to help it mapping. It will definitely be very, very useful. Thanks for that. Anne-Marie.
Thank you, Vlada. And today I'm wearing actually an ICT for Peace hat. So just to talk about a couple of the things that ICT for Peace is working on, but just perhaps to remind you that it's been around actually since 2004. So a long time, when it was already working with the UN and a lot of these issues, specifically on using technology for peaceful purposes. But there are two main calls that ICT for Peace have put forth to governments. One is for governments to publicly state that they will refrain from attacking civilian critical infrastructure using cyber attacks. And the second is for a peer review mechanism of behavior in cyberspace. And this is based a little bit on the Human Rights Council Universal Periodic Review format. But the idea is to have some type of mechanism, well, standards based, I think, on, for example, the GGE 2015 report is a good starting point, so that we can have some type of process to see how states are behaving. And just on the last element, we also are very focused on kind of the human-centric and human rights aspects around in cyberspace. So misinformation, disinformation, and other areas that really these are all destabilizing of peace in cyberspace. So these are other areas we're working on. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. We are running out of time, and thanks for the inputs also, Johan, on the WIPO and the intellectual property aspects, which is being raised a lot in the G7, G20 discussions as well, the protection of intellectual property as part of the cybersecurity agenda in a way. Any final thoughts from anyone who wants to share on the institutions? If not, we'll wrap up briefly. I'll give the floor quickly to Adriana, and then we will certainly continue this. This was actually a warming up exercise, and we'll keep you posted on the atlas and the mapping of institutions and questions, and please help us map both the topics and then the institutions. Adriana.
Thanks for the floor, Vlada. I sure hope that I have an echo. So, Vlada, can you mute yourself? I think that I'm hearing from you.
Just go on, it's fine.
Okay, so I sure hope that I won't miss anything because the chat has been super active. So I think that the last thing we read out loud was about effective oversight for cyber actions and how to protect at the same time human rights. This was echoed again that human rights need to be respected in cyberspace. So what is valid offline should also be valid online. Amir then clarified a bit about the digital platforms, and he said they work as proxies in interfering in other countries' affairs without any accountability. And then Alejandro said that there should be applicability of international law in cyberspace on our mural. Boris brought up the data localization laws. So what is the status of international discussions on states installing these laws? Which prevent the free flow of data for e-commerce. And Hisashi, I think, wanted to say that privacy rights are suppressed in times of Corona, and that some states, we need a good review once the first wave has passed. Christian then elaborated on the minimal existing standards, and she also then mentioned that the GG cannot be mentioned as a valid forum on our map because it's very closed formatted, and she also mentioned a similar caveat about the Geneva dialogues. And Hisashi then expressed some concern for the human rights defenders who contribute to the UN human rights mechanisms. There are some reprisals to them, and the OHCHR should be aware of what is happening on in that field. Johan mentioned WIPO and the IP aspects of data, and Annalie, which I now see Vlada you replied to, said we could send the mapping study by email. Oof, I hope that I didn't miss anything. If I did, my apologies.
Thanks, Andreana. It was not easy to follow the chat, and thanks all for being quite interactive. Again, only 30 minutes allows us just to scratch the surface, but we will continue. Now, time to go back to the main room. So close this window or leave the room, go to the meetings.diplomacy, and then pick the main room and see you there again. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.